This is not a simple civil unrest boiling up out of the hearts of either the black population or other minorities or majorities in our country. It is a paid-for insurrection.
Hey friends, Sean from SGT Report here. Before we begin this interview with author Wayne Jett, just a quick word from this interview's sponsor. On the back of this virus, our health and patience have really been tested. But guess what? 100% pure ESS-60 is incredible, and now you can get it directly from the lab. It's called a miracle molecule because people sleep better and enjoy more energy and mental focus with a simple spoonful in the morning. ESS-60 comes in 3 delicious organic oils: olive, avocado, and MCT coconut. This groundbreaking blend supports your immune system with powerful antioxidant and antiviral properties. ESS-60 delivers more than 172 times the power of vitamin C. ESS-60 is such a powerful antioxidant that it helps neutralize free radicals to assist with detox. You're going to love it. It's great for pets too. Get $10 off today at c60perfect.com. I'll leave the link below. A very real war is being fought presently by unconventional means in America and much of the world. As usual, the aggressors are the powerful alliance known as the globalist cabal. But this time, an historic counterattack is underway by nationalists seeking to protect and preserve cultural values and governance. Another extraordinary feature is that the war is not presently being fought between weaponized military warriors of opposing nations. The enemies of America and its allies are very rich oligarchs and power centers protected by complex social structures, secret alliances, including within America, and private armies. They must be discovered and rooted out by means not customarily within the scope of military actions. That was written by my friend and author, Wayne Jett, the author of Fruits of Graft, and Wayne Jett returns to SGT Report right now. How are you, Wayne?
Very well, Sean, under the circumstances for all Americans. But I'm very happy to be with you and your audience. It's most important that we share as much as we can when we think we have something important to say that certainly is not being communicated in the media.
Well, that's right. And just so people know, they can find these articles that you write over at classicalcapital.com. And, of course, we try to syndicate them as well over at sgtreport.com. So, Wayne, it's serendipitous that you wrote that because I was working on a new video script on Sunday. And the first sentence of that script is, "We are at war." And I got a tweet from a friend at about that same time during the day saying, "Hey, Joe M. has a new video up." And Joe M.'s video is COVID 9/11, and within the first 20 seconds, he says, "America is at war." All three of us are on the same page here, and I think Americans are waking up, at least those of us on the right. We know war is being waged against us, Wayne.
And it's most important, and I'm very happy to hear and see that this message is getting to a larger audience, certainly not through the major media. The major media, in large part, simply has to be regarded as tools of the opposing attackers. It's a sad thing, but nevertheless, the writing that I did, I thought it was important, especially in light of the time basically a century ago, 103 years ago, 1917, was when the insurgency attacked Russia and the Russian parliament, the Russian capital. And it's clear, even though it's reported as supposedly the communist revolution or something of the sort, the Russian Revolution, it was an insurgency in Moscow and in Russia when I'm quite certain, I'm convinced that historically what occurred is that the Shah, or the Tsar, I'm sorry, the Russian Tsar, Nicholas II, had told the Rothschilds and the cabal,
"No central bank for you," right? And
no central bank.
Woodrow Wilson said, "Sure, we'll do a central bank."
Yes.
And what happened to Russia? A Bolshevik revolution, and Nicholas and his family were slaughtered.
That's correct. And that parallel has so many things to say about the nature of the conflict going on in America right now. It's being treated as if it's a political thing, that it's an anti-Trump thing, that it's something that the socialists are against the capitalists and things of that sort. One of the things that characterized, and there is historical proof about the so-called Russian Revolution, is that a large amount of funding was transmitted into Russia for the Bolsheviks, for the insurgents, the people who were put into Russia as attackers. These days, you'd have to give comparisons, for example, of the attackers, the insurgency sent into Syria, sent into various of the countries that have been attacked by this same kind of methodology. But there was a lot of money sent in from international banks. We had a witness in 1938, one of the high operatives captured in the Soviet Union at that time by Stalin, who testified that he was one of the ones who participated in transmitting funds into the Bolsheviks from an international bank. That is the kind of money that is coming into this country, supposedly for political or just sympathetic contributions to those who are are staging the riots and the social conflict, whatever you want to call it, in American cities. In many respects, I mean, I'll just straight out say it appears to me to be an insurgency of the nature of the Bolsheviks. And likewise, heavily funded by supposedly sympathizers, but in my estimation, it is the cabal again. It is the cabal that has been challenged, not only challenged verbally, but in a very real sense of a counter-assault, in effect, a war against the cabal by the government operatives of President Donald Trump.
All right, I just want to ask you your thoughts on this because I often will point to George Soros as being one of the chief financiers of this terror, pallets of bricks finding their way into major cities conveniently. You write in your article, it is not merely George Soros financing the current attacks on American institutions, economy, the people, and the president. It is the globalist cabal, which has owned and controlled the too-big-to-fail banks on Wall Street, the Federal Reserve, and the purse strings of establishment politicians, Democrats and rhinos, you write. So, what is the globalist cabal? Who are these people sitting above George Soros? Help us paint the picture of this omnipotent globalist cabal.
Well, there are individual families that certainly bear naming that are commonly named and well understood. The Rothschilds, the Rockefellers. There are others that we could go through, quite a number of families that are familiar names in America. But above and beyond that, they are organized in particular headquarters and organizations. The Vatican and various leaders of the Catholic Church, and related organizations, the City of London, and the Federal Reserve. Those are very important power centers of the cabal. They've been used in those ways, and certainly at the command of the cabal all the years that we've known about them, certainly all my life and longer than that. And so we can talk about those kind of things in general terms, but it doesn't, I think, serve a great purpose to try to get too meticulous about it, because I think the intelligence that we have about it that has been gathered by the Trump administration and those who support the Trump administration is so much beyond our direct knowledge of it. We can learn a little bit about it, and we can learn a little bit about what is put out to us to know. I think a number of other people are doing a great job of that and reporting those things to us. And there's some indication, there's been a report recently that I would credit, indicating that during this period of this year, this tremendous tumult for Americans, there has been a lot more going on than has been reported in the news. There is a report that, for example, that the Vatican has been taken down from its power control by actions of the U.S. government and related parties. I do not have great details about that, but it has been reported. And I think there's some reason to give that credit, as well as the fact, for example, that there are a number of reports that seem to be well informed that, in fact, the Federal Reserve has been taken down. Also, that the City of London has been taken down by forces under the command of the Trump administration. So these are extremely important occurrences that have not been fully reported or verified, but if true, and it certainly seems to me that that serious matters of this kind are ongoing, or there would not be this vicious attack coming out and providing money and weapons and people on the streets, and this tremendous destruction attacking American cities. But one of the things that that this experience shows us, in my estimation, is that there are many operatives of the global cabal in the United States. They have been bought off, they've been sold out. They've been doing this for certainly many more years than the Trump administration. We had many infiltrators, many insurgents brought into the country during the previous administrations. And I think they are playing active parts in the domestic unrest, we can call it, that is occurring presently, or has been occurring. It's somewhat at a lower ebb than it has been. But we have been under attack, not just this year, but in previous years, whether they're in firestorms in the forests or firestorms in our neighborhoods, the spraying of geoengineering weapons against us for years now. All of those kind of things are attacks, but they have been especially violent and direct this year, along with the what I've referred to directly also as a bioweapon that has been loosed against the American people and is still trying to be used to do as much damage to us as possible.
Yeah, well, in California, the criminal governor, Gavin Newsom, has just ordered the reclosing of bars and restaurants in Los Angeles and 6 other counties. These tyrants will never back down. And so when you mention insurgents, I can't help but think of the Democrat Party. I can't help but think and ask the question, how many of these people are in the pocket of the globalist cabal? I mean, recently the House Democrats unanimously blocked a resolution condemning violence and rioting. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, Wayne. If they're not on the side of the American people, then they are against the American people and our way of life. And to me, they seem to stand defiantly against the American way, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I just can't see it any other way at this point.
Well, certainly, regardless of their particular political beliefs, if they're taking money, and particularly money in the absolutely gargantuan amounts that I believe have been the case with a great number of politicians, if they're taking the money and selling out American interests and selling out American safety, all of the things, putting us into wars, destroying lives, if they're doing that, that is, in my mind, certainly as serious treason as if they were political advocates of a different ideology. If they've sold out to that extent, and I think a great many have, and I would include in that what I would have to call this rhinos, Republicans in name only, is a they're really as much of a part of the globalist cabal, the cartel, whatever you want to call it, as the Democrats are. But the Democrat Party is just so completely sold out. It has been, and I'd have to say the rhinos have been only giving mouth service to the kinds of objectives and policies that conservative Americans or real Americans actually support. The growth of the middle class, prosperity, those kinds of goals, the freedom to practice religion, the freedom of speech to voice political convictions and matters that are so important to be discussed candidly. When those kind of things are put down and disposed of in such ways as we've only had reported in past years, past decades from other countries. When have we seen this kind of censorship that is so flagrant right now in America? When have we seen that here in this country before this counter assault by Donald Trump and his presidency?
No, you're right. The censorship is absolutely off the charts. And it leads me to believe that the big social media companies are in bed with the Democrats and the globalist cabal to topple this nation. Let me just ask you this. If Jefferson said the only reason to resort to government at all is to protect our liberties, then it seems to me these tyrants, and I will cite names here, are pushing people toward a revolution. Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkin, the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, Chaz. How would you like to have a business in the Chaz zone and you can't serve your customers? Maybe you're not allowed access to your own business, or maybe your business is burned down. How about Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot? Shootings only increasing as they try to defund the police. New York's de Blasio, same exact thing. Have you seen the footage coming out of New York City? It's absolutely appalling. If the only reason to resort to government at all is to protect our liberties, then these people are by definition tyrants that need to be toppled.
Well, I have no doubt that the objective is to move our circumstances here in this country exactly to those points where we not only have open warfare within the country, but that would give rise an opportunity for, as has already been brought up, bringing in United Nations troops to assist the Americans against their government. Now that, if anybody believes they'd actually be assisting us, that would be, in effect, open warfare against America and Americans. And it would also invite the possibility of an enemy government, a government who is under control again of the cabal and the shadow governments, the deep states that have done so much within the United States to harm our government and harm our prosperity. We got to remember that 1901 plan that you and I have spoken about previously, that was written in full English, describing in detail the approach they were going to take to go to a globalist world dominated by only the ruling class, no middle class whatsoever. The point that they were making is that those governments were to overpower us and to destroy the middle class, exterminate blacks, exterminate yellows, exterminate every color, and especially everyone able to support themselves by their earnings, by their work, the middle class. That's their objective, and that's what the UN serves. The UN is an organization designed to carry out that cabal objective. Certainly, the Rockefellers donating the site for the United Nations in New York was a part of that design. We just simply have to face these realities and understand the challenge that President Trump and our present administration is facing, along with us, because they have saved us from the fate that the cabal had planned for us by this time if the other candidate had won in 2016.
100%. That's exactly right. And Wayne, what I'm a little concerned about right now, and I haven't been up to this point, is Joe Biden becoming president or a brokered convention in the DNC making Hillary Clinton the candidate. Now, up to this point, I haven't been concerned about it because Joe Biden can barely string a sentence together, and that's not hyperbole. The man is obviously mentally deficient, and he's getting worse by the day. However, Fox News polls are even suggesting that Biden is beating Trump in these, I think, baked polls. I don't see how that's possible. Your view on Biden or Clinton, what happens to this country if Hillary Clinton is implanted into the White House or, God forbid, somehow Joe Biden becomes president?
Well, I've been convinced for some time that Biden will not be the candidate. And just within the past week, there has been released a videotape that I'm sure is well known around your audience by prosecutors in the Ukraine that give detailed evidence about Joe Biden's involvement in the corruption there. And they flat out state that their evidence proves that Joe Biden was promised $51 million for getting rid of the prosecutor, not to get rid of the prosecutor so he wouldn't go after Biden's son Hunter. The deal was for Biden to get rid of the prosecutor from going after the oligarch who owned Burisma. The owner of Burisma reportedly had stolen from the Ukrainian government well over $1 billion. I'm not sure how much the total amount was, but a very large looting of amounts actually belonging to the government during its transition after that coup that was conducted largely at the behest of Obama's State Department. The coup in Ukraine I'm talking about. And so we're talking about a situation in which our media has completely misrepresented the Burisma controversy and the Ukrainian controversy. Certainly the House of Representatives misrepresented it as well. Hunter Biden was never more than simply the bagman. He was an instrument by which some of the money from the payoff to Biden would be transmitted. How they were going to get the full $51 million to Biden, I don't know, but that's what the prosecutors say. So we're not getting anywhere close to the story from the press. We're not getting it. Let me add to my criticism of the press. The academic institutions I've criticized before about their radical plans and the way they are censoring speech, are censoring the rights of Americans simply because they're students. And not only that, even worse, if it can be worse than that, they are recruiting practically all these same kind of ideologues that have also been indoctrinated by these treasonous academic institutions, so that they are indoctrinating our young people with these crazy ideas about oppression by the white man, or the oppression by the United States government, or the oppression that comes from our being able to voice our own political opinions in a free and open society. Our academic institutions, our historians, have not told the truth to these young students in any respect. Neither have they allowed the truth to come out to the American people. But the 1901 plan, as I've said before, clearly indicated they were going to censor the press. They were going to censor books. They were going to take control of publishers and so forth and so on. That's why we never learned the truth about the Great Depression and how it was purposely imposed on America and the world, primarily by American presidents, started by Hoover, but absolutely nailed and prolonged, made much more severe by Franklin Roosevelt, by deliberate actions that, of course, we've talked about. My book, The Fruits of Graft, is the only one that details that, and it's so important for Americans to have that kind of informational background in order for them to understand just how vile American officials can be. They're not American, they're cabalist officials, but they are officials of our government. We happen to have a rescue, an interlude in these present 4 years in which a president has been elected who is not a cabalist operative. And we must take the best advantage of it we can. And certainly my view is that we should prolong that 4 years into another 4 years to see if we can't really make it last for future generations as far as we can see.
Well, that's our prayer, and it is really a wing and a prayer. The last chance for the Republic is to restore the Republic, and so we're praying for mass arrests and indictments of deep state criminals. You know the names, Wayne. We talk about it all the time. It just appears that the deck is so stacked against we the people that it almost seems insurmountable. But people are waking up in droves and taking the pledge, the oath, to support and defend the Constitution. Maybe you've seen that on Twitter. People from all walks of life are taking the oath that has been defiled by so many of these politicians. And it just breaks my heart because you're right. Can you imagine if documentation, if a 1-hour presentation with documentation proving that Trump took a $50 or $51 million bribe from Ukraine and basically through graft enriched himself to the tune of $50 million in Ukraine, and there was documentation proving that provided by Ukrainian officials, do you think that wouldn't be all over CNN and Washington Post and MSNBC every single minute of every single day between now and November? But we have that information implicating Biden, and it's completely ignored. So that's how you know the Republic. That's how you know these people stand against the Republic.
And Biden, as we know, was a minor player under Obama. He hardly surfaced, and not in any role of importance in any event. And so the 51 million would be absolute chump change compared to other high officials, including the Secretary of State, including Obama himself. And there have been statements, as we know, that from President Trump calling out actions by certain officials as treason, including the former president or the, as I've heard it said in a couple of his dinner speeches, the first Kenyan to become president of the United States. This is a matter of great serious importance. We all know that, but it's a good thing for us to have a conversation in which we get into proper perspective just what is going on. This is not a simple civil unrest boiling up out of the hearts of either the black population or other minorities or majorities in our country. It is a paid-for insurrection by war fighters, and if they can get to the next level of using weaponry, I'm afraid that would be the case. But again, I would say that there are reports of very significant actions taken by important centers of the global cabal, and they include actions within the United States as well, military actions, stopping human trafficking, interdicting those kind of operations, stopping drug trafficking, cutting off the funds going to the cabal, and hopefully the reports that large amounts of the stolen capital from America and from other nations is being captured as well. So still have an optimistic attitude about where we go from here. But in the meantime, we have to make sure that the country stays safe. I'm sure the president is giving that great attention. And I'm greatly encouraged by his recent tweet saying that the country will not be shut down again. That's a very important message to deliver, and one that is going to be necessary to uphold in order for people to regain their confidence, in order to invest their time and life and their capital into businesses to try to serve others and to prosper. All of that has to come together, and it needs to come together soon. And if it does, if we start making progress, I'm confident that the president is going to have another big victory, regardless of these bought and paid for polls that simply tell us more lies.
Well, I agree with you there. There's just no way those polls can be accurate. I mean, there's just no way in a rational world, but in many ways we live in an irrational world, but there's no way that Joe Biden, who doesn't make any appearances, and when he does make an appearance, he can barely string a sentence together, could possibly have more support than President Trump. But we do know how much the left hates our president, but they also hate liberty. They hate our country, they hate sovereignty, they hate our borders, they hate life, they prefer abortion. We know what we're up against here, Wayne. It's a real war, and it is a real spiritual war. Wayne, I really appreciate your time and your intellect, and will remind people your website is classicalcapital.com, correct?
That's right. And the hardback of The Fruits of Graft, Great Depressions Then and Now, is only $25 still. And shipping is free within the United States. Those outside the country need to be careful in picking the right tab to be able to pay for a discounted postage rate to get it to the other place to deliver it, because frankly, the postage is a higher cost than the book. But it is a book that has been awarded 7 stars as a life-changing, transformative book, simply because it tells the truth about what happened to Americans, not just in the Great Depression, but in the tech crash, in the crash of 2008, exactly how all of those were committed as financial crimes against the American people by the cabal and their operatives from this country that have had so much control over our government. So we need to learn these things, and then people will be able to absorb much more clearly what is going on now and how we must defeat it. So I thank you very much for having me on, Sean.
Yeah, you're, of course, always welcome to come on, and I appreciate your time. Yeah, it would be interesting if it would be wonderful to see these young people in Antifa and Black Lives Matter. It'd be great to see how they would be acting and behaving right now if they were classically educated instead of dumbed down in public institutions of lower learning. If they'd read your book, if they understood history, they would probably fall to their knees and beg God himself for forgiveness for trying to destroy this country. They really know not what they do, Wayne.
Well, I would also say that I'm certainly encouraged. I think as many other are, there are many people of color speaking up. I'm sure endangering their own lives more than it would be for persons of the white skin. They are speaking up and understanding these things, even when they don't have the advantage of great education. They know where their opportunities are. They know what's good and what's fair, and they also see much too clearly and up close the violence that is done to their own neighborhoods, their own people, their own families when these things that are perpetrated on us come about. So America can come back from this thing, but we must not go through the nightmare of 70 plus years of living within the grasp and dying within the grasp of the global cabal the way the Russians did. A Christian nation that had a growing middle class, much different from what we're told that everybody was nothing but a serf in the Russia of the early 20th century. They had a growing middle class, and that middle class was killed in as many ways, different ways as necessary by the millions in order to make sure that they were subjugated to the so-called socialists. But basically, the system called communism was just as violent as necessary to keep control in the hands of the global cabal. That's what happened to Russia, and why they are so insistent that they will not be taken down that road again. So thank you again for having me, Sean.
Yeah, and thanks for that perspective on what happened in Russia, because in my view, that's exactly what's going to happen here if the Democrats and the globalist cabal get their way. Guys, our guest has been Wayne Jett from ClassicalCapital.com, the book, Fruits of Graft. Wayne, thank you so much.
Thank you, Sean.
And guys, thank you so much for tuning in. For real news, remember, you can always find my latest 3 videos sticky posted at the very top of SGT Report, so check us out there for real news 24/7. The antidote to corporate propaganda. Love you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.
House Coronavirus Task Force launches probe into largest nursing home operators. This is the U.S. House of Representatives Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Crisis.